Hello, Duke fans. Welcome in to the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast on SI. My name is Hugh Strain, your daily host and writer at Duke Blue Devils on SI. Duke basketball looking to get out to an 8-0 start in ACC play with a Monday night home matchup against number 23 Louisville on Monday night. This will be the second date between the Blue Devils and the Cardinals. The first came on January 6th. Duke took down Louisville 84-73. Louisville currently at 14-5 overall and 4-3 in conference play. Took down Virginia Tech 85-71 over the weekend. So could weather have any sort of implications on this game? It very well could. There's been an impending snowstorm that has really done its damage across the Northeast for the better part of Sunday. And in many places, it's supposed to do some damage into Monday as well. Duke's game with Wake Forest that happened on Saturday, Duke took down the Deacons 90-69 at Cameron Indoor. Tip-off was originally scheduled for 5:45 p.m. Eastern time. That was moved up to 12 p.m. Eastern time with the impending snowstorm. Duke University has called off in-person classes on Monday before 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. So certainly weather implications that you have to feel could have a big effect on this. No reports as of now, as of 6:37 p.m. Eastern time on January 26th, but reports around Durham County and that area of North Carolina is very icy, freezing rain, obviously snow, which could do some damage to the roads. And, you got to think that that could have a big effect. Again, no reports have surfaced out of that so far. And as it currently stands, Duke will tip off against Louisville at Cameron Indoor at 7 p.m. Eastern time on Monday night. Who knows if the weather could implicate that. On Sunday, several NBA games across the United States were delayed or postponed due to the snowstorm and the effect it has on roads and really commutes for anybody in cities and with long commutes. Obviously, Louisville coming up from Kentucky. Who knows if Sunday's snowstorm really has an impact on that. But this will be the second matchup between Duke and Louisville so far this season. And Duke didn't really look elite through a lot of the first matchup. Duke won 84-73, but the first half was pretty ugly. Duke went down 47-38 in that first half. It's the most points Duke has allowed to a team so far this season in any half. Duke was able to really bounce back in the second half, limited Ryan Conwell, who had 16 points and 4 threes in the first half in the first matchup in Louisville. Dame Sarr was the primary defender on him and really shut him down. Conwell was limited to just 8 points in the second half, didn't hit a single three, and Duke was able to sort of get control of the game on both sides of the ball as the game went on. So through Duke's West Coast road trip, the two-game slate against Stanford and California, Duke won both those games, took down California 71-56 on January 14th, and took down Stanford 80-50 on January 17th, and looked pretty elite defensively. Held both of those schools to under 40% from the field, under 30% from three. And Duke, against Wake Forest, it didn't really translate. Granted, the Blue Devils won by 21 points. It was a dominant victory where the team shot 50% from the field, 41% for Wake Forest, 44% from three, 14 of 32 from beyond the arc for the Demon Deacons. And it didn't really play a massive factor, but still, wasn't where Duke needs to be defensively. It is one of the longest and biggest teams in college basketball and thrives with its defensive length and versatility. That's how John Shire likes to build his clubs. And that just really was not on display against Wake Forest. You don't want to say it's bad defense. It wasn't bad defense at all. But Duke has yet to consistently become elite defensively. It's still one of the best defensive teams in the country. By the numbers, the computer numbers have Duke extremely high. Duke is currently 6th in adjusted defensive efficiency at KenPom, but it's just not as elite consistently as it needs to be. Duke has potential to easily be the best defensive team in the country, and its overwhelming length and positionlessness type of basketball that it can play that a lot of teams can't will really bode well in the NCAA tournament in those tight games where Duke needs to get stops. But it's just not happening consistently, and it's not happening consistently against some teams that are fairly weaker. Duke still has plenty of high marquee matchups on the slate for the rest of the season. That includes a game with Michigan on February 21st at Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C. And the Wolverines have the potential to be one of the best offensive teams in the entire country. Again, that's, far away from now. That's just under a month from right now. And I think John Shire knows how elite his teams can be defensively and where Duke is lacking. And it's definitely getting better as the season goes on, but just isn't as consistently elite as it can possibly be. One of the biggest details in this matchup for Duke against Louisville is that 5-star freshman guard Mikel Brown Jr. will be back in the lineup for Pat Kelsey's Cardinals. Mikel Brown was out for the first game against the Blue Devils. He missed a total of 8 games with an injury, and he is going to make one heck of a difference to this Louisville squad when they go up against Duke. Mikel Brown, again, one of the top-ranked point guards in the 2025 recruiting class, one of the top overall prospects, really one of the most electric guards in college basketball so far this season. On the year, he's averaging 16.9 points and 5.2 assists on just over 40% from the field. Again, missed a lot of time, but in his first game back this weekend in the Cardinals win over Virginia Tech, he looked like he hadn't missed a beat. Brown went for 20 points, 6 assists, and a steal in 29 minutes of action, shot 7-11 from the field, and 3 of 6 from 3. Again, a guy that impacts the game in so many ways on the offensive side of the ball, really prolific scorer, has the ability to shoot outside. His three-point shooting percentage won't reflect that, but he is one of the most prolific scorers, I think, in all of college basketball. Can score in a lot of different ways. He's an extremely good athlete, can get downhill. He's also an extremely talented passer and always seems to make the right call, whether to get the ball to his teammates or whether to take it himself. He's a really, really fantastic floor general and a guy that's projected to be one of the top picks in the 2026 NBA draft. But he is back in the lineup for Louisville, and he was not in the first edition between these two schools. Now, what does it mean? Dame Sarr was on Ryan Conwell, who was lighting Duke up in the first half. Dame Sarr shuts him down. You got to think Caleb Foster is probably going to be the primary defender on Brown when he's in the ballgame on Monday night. Caleb Foster has arguably been Duke's best perimeter defender all season long. If you want to count Sarr as a perimeter defender, he's up there as well. But I kind of just count Sarr as well as Malik Brown as all-around elite defenders. I think Caleb Foster is the best true guard defender that this team has, and you got to think he's going to be on Mikel Brown. And so much of Louisville's offense revolves around him. Pat Kelsey built his team this offseason around Mikel Brown running the show. It's really Mikel Brown and shooters everywhere. Isaac McNeely, Adrian Woolley, Ryan Conwell, guys like that. It's who Pat Kelsey built the team around, but it's all centered for Mikel Brown Jr.'s success because he's an elite floor general, just runs the show and knows when to make the right pass, has a really high basketball IQ. He's also an extremely good athlete. So you got to think Caleb Foster is going to be on him. And it's somewhat similar to the situation, I think, when Duke was going up against Boobie Miller. Obviously, Boobie Miller didn't play, but I wrote a story saying that Duke needed to make Boobie Miller either a scorer or a passer. He was at the top of the conference in points per game, as well as assists per game. Mikel Brown Jr. isn't quite there because he hasn't played a lot of games, but one of this conference's best all-around scorers, one of this conference's best passers. Now, Duke's got to take one of those away. That goes back to the elite defense. Louisville moves the ball really well. They're a very hot and cold offense. We've seen it look like truly the best offense in college basketball at times. We've seen it look fairly mediocre. If they're not making outside shots, they're not an extremely difficult team to beat. Louisville isn't elite defensively, but they are a prolific scoring team. And if they get hot from the perimeter, they're going to be extremely difficult for Duke to take down. And so much of that revolves around Brown Jr. So turning him into a scorer or a passer, limiting one of those, I think will be probably the biggest key for Duke so far. Blue Devils have a chance to earn its 9th Quad 1 win of the season. Duke currently number 3 in the net behind Arizona and Michigan. Duke with an 8-0 record, 8-1 record in Quadrant 1, an 11-1 record in the first 2 quadrants, and a 6-0 record in true road games. The only other team with at least 8 Quad 1 wins is Arizona at the number 1 spot in both the net and the AP poll. And the only other team with at least 6 true road wins and 0 losses is UConn. ACC was very well represented in the latest update of ESPN's bracketology for the 2026 NCAA tournament. Duke came in as a 1 seed along with Arizona, Michigan, and UConn. 9 ACC teams total featured in the projected field of 68. That's the second most of any conference. The Big Ten was slotted with 10, and the ACC and the SEC both with 9. Other ACC schools besides Duke were Virginia as a 4 seed, Louisville, North Carolina, and Clemson as 6 seeds. SMU is a 7 seed, Miami, NC State as 10 seeds, and Virginia Tech was the last team in. ACC having a very good bounce back season after a couple years of mediocrity. But big storyline for Duke with the weather, with Mikael Brown Jr. now active, coming back with a game under his belt, who was not available in Duke's first game against the Cardinals. We'll see if the weather is anything. Who knows? But Duke's slated to kick it off against Louisville at 7 p.m. on Monday night at Cameron Indoor Stadium. My name is Hugh Strain. We thank you so much for listening into the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts every single day, and make sure to stay up to date with all things Duke athletics at si.com/college/Duke. My name is Hugh Strain. We'll see you all tomorrow.